are now Arabic, white, multifaceted. So like these, in terms of understanding Africanity in different ways, it's definitely a changing landscape. So you can see that some of the audience members, particularly in Salvador da Bahia, one of the screenings was in Pelourinho, which is known as the old whipping post. And one of the participants described their experience with watching the movie, saying that he had watched many people who were just like Domitila back in the 80s and 90s that thought they were under the dictatorship, and they thought that they were going to be able to, just work the streets for a little bit and then escape, but often ended up dying similar to Jennifer. So in terms of just looking at, diasporic geographical spaces, also on top of that, you have a movie that's invoking these different connections of oppression within the global South. Some audience members within the group described were turned off and a little bit frustrated with the narration of occult um, slaying of representation of the traditional Yoruba practices. So within Brazil, people normally oftentimes look towards African spirituality in a positive way, as people that normally take to different spiritual practices. So to see the representation parallel how many Catholics and other people that are not practicing African-based traditions being criticized in the same way was uh, very frustrating for some viewers. And some participants asked if the producer was white because they just didn't understand the fact that a Nigerian could produce such content. But this is a part of the understanding, being able to see different renditions of cultural productions and how it can be used as a heuristic device to educate about, society and how there are many similarities to Brazil if you look closer. All right, so in terms of violence, oppression, you guys were able to see a little bit of that, mobility and displacement. So you have women coming from the countryside, moving to the city, trying to make it. You have similar tales within Brazil. Another participant described that they were happy to see, it was good that the film showed that Africans are not just don't only live in the city or just have jumping gazelles, greenery savanna. And then the participant was like, okay, Africa is not one. Nigeria has many people, which are also represented in the film. Only still shows one reality, not all African people. The film shows the urban yearnings, women's desires, and wanting an easier life. The market is a typical market that you can see around Africa. And so this is one of the reflections. So in terms of limitations, film studies student said that it was embarrassing for a cinema film scholar to not know about, especially as a Black person, to not know about Nollywood. And that for him, it was very frustrating to watch in that it was irritating for him because of the sound and the style was similar to a soap opera. And the question is, do we need Nollywood outside of the ideological orientation? Imagine a country with the most African descendants outside of Africa not knowing about it. And then so basically talking about, similar, but they're more pressing things that are going on right now, particularly the genocide of Black and African people within Brazil and how they're being incarcerated. And he's fighting against that. So those are some of the reflections. And just overall, in terms of the project, people that were interested in Nollywood in Brazil were mostly entrepreneurs, cultural communities, cinema studies scholars, cinema clubs, which would actually be the best place to translate the films, and they would definitely be able to have distribution there, and government entities as well as Pan-African groups. So, all right, so some reasons why it wouldn't be promoted. So overall, Nollywood increases knowledge about African culture to some extent, similar to any film from any country. Many participants did not appreciate the quality. Loved the fact that it was all Black cast. They were able to see different values and cultural norms. Some people loved the fact that it was a Christian film. Other people or perpetuated Christian moral characteristics. Other people were completely opposed. Many viewers felt that this could supplement the affirmative action policies that have been implemented within Brazil, which mandate that both African and Afro-Brazilian education be taught. So ultimately, similar to the Francophone countries, translation is necessary. So this study also is similar to the study that was conducted in Barbados, in that that there would be a Pan-African connection, and the Neo-African, which I talk about in the book, the Nigerian immigrants that are living within Sao Paulo mostly and distributing the films. Their case study is similar to the study in Italy, which is they normally look towards Nollywood to support their homeland and just have a sense of normalcy in a foreign land. All right, ultimately, I want to conclude by saying that Nollywood is an exceptional field of cultural production, the kind that is difficult to ignore, one that has crossed national boundaries, creating what is akin to sub-regional expression of culture and society, and should definitely be taken, should be looked into. All right, I want to thank everyone, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ewing. That was such an informative lecture. It introduced us to many things such as Nollywood. And I did not realize that Nollywood was a feature of the Global South. Yeah, that was very interesting to pull all of those diasporic expressions together there. I'm going to go for questions. So, okay, Regina, you have a question first, Dr. Hamilton?
Hi, Dr. Ewing. I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. So I know at one part of your presentation, you compared Nollywood to Bollywood and to Hollywood, right? And you did mention that there's the perception that once Nollywood starts engaging more serious topics, that it'll become more popular. And so my question is just really, is that the goal of Nollywood? Is Nollywood a production of, that's sort of like a Black cultural production that's meant for the diaspora, for particularly for Nigerian or even now perhaps even Brazilian audience? Or are they trying to be, is it trying to be the next Hollywood, right? Is it trying to bring in the kind of money and funding and resources that Hollywood is? And a follow-up to that, I was just curious about, oh wait, I lost it. Anyway, so we'll just start there.
All right, thank you for your question, Dr. Hamilton. So yes, definitely, many people compare Nollywood to the beginning of Hollywood, and that there were many different groups of people producing at the same time, and there wasn't a centralized Hollywood, as we think of today. So I think in many ways, how Nollywood is at the beginning stages right now. The government, so for years, the government would not support Nollywood. Recently, they finally have crossed over and started to support. So in that, they realized literally it's the third largest, some people say second largest industry, third largest industry after banking and oil in Nigeria. So it's a huge revenue. And then at the same time, I mean, anybody that gets their hair braided anywhere around the world, you're most likely going to end up watching, Nollywood films, and not even know it. So
it's available on Netflix now, right? So the streaming world has been much more they've been quicker to this than it seems like the overarching sort of distribution and production structure has, right?
Yes, definitely. Yes. So the new Nollywood, which is a higher budget film supported oftentimes by the government or other entities, you'll see on Netflix. Many, you can find them on the airplane when we could travel. You can find them all over now in different spaces that normally we were not able to watch. So definitely, I feel like, the streaming systems are ahead. And I guess, that's been the way that it's been. Used to be you still can buy the physical copies in different spaces around the world, but online streaming definitely the best. And Netflix has awakened to the idea that yes, there's tons of people that want to see different, just seeing Black bodies, an all Black cast, So you have Nollywood, and you also have many South African industries that are, creating robust productions. So it's a beautiful time, and definitely so now so many producers, they just want to tell their stories. So oftentimes Nollywood is literally, they're just telling like it's a delayed newscast is what some people would say. And they're literally producing these films, just tell about what's going on in their society, what's going on in their world, and creating a drama about it, and in sequels and sequels and sequels. So, that's, so I think people just want to tell their stories, and they love the art. And also, I mean, for example, like when an Hollywood movie is produced, literally you'll have the director that wants to produce in a certain region. If in order to get actors, they'll ask actors to be involved, and literally they will have people come and say, okay, what does this town need? What do you guys need? Okay, you need a road build, we'll build your road, as long as we can use your space and place. And so literally it's a nice grassroots effort that is a wonderful, economy going on there. So
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? All right, Pearl James, English, come through.
Hi.
Hi.
Kamahra and everybody, thank you. And Kamahra, I'm a little familiar with your work, and I just wondered, has your ability to do research been affected or impacted by the COVID epidemic, or have you collected enough data at this point to just kind of write, or have you had to, put things on hold that you were planning to do? That's my question.
Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you, Dr. James. This has been, I was going to return to Brazil this summer to update everything, and also just to understand how things have changed after Bolsonaro, because when I was there, Dilma was the president, so completely different environment. So that's the only portion of the chapter, but I can look at newspapers, and I can look online, and I can, ask people as well. So yeah, I mean, I was supposed to present in Russia as well, so all this is stopped in different ways. So definitely, in terms of, I have enough data. I have more than enough data. So I just need to publish now. So I look forward to like catching up with a lot of the data that I do have. And, the next project was supposed to be Black Panther 2, and I was going to do an audience reception. So we'll see how that works now. We'll see how that works. I'll have to adjust accordingly. So online. But I mean, what's nice is that you have like Netflix, you can have streaming parties. So this may actually, I may have a larger sample size, in terms of collecting data. So you'll have to adjust, but luckily with online media, there's always data to be collected. So thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have a question?
Looks like Shauna has her hand raised.
All right, Shauna.
Thank you so much. Thanks for this talk. I guess I have sort of a two-part question. I appreciated the Bollywood reference because when I was a child in Jamaica, my grandfather would steadily have all of his grandchildren around him trying to learn about Indian ancestry through Bollywood. And so I'm really intrigued by that idea. And I'm wondering if you've considered the impact of Nollywood on second generation Nigerians in the US, for example, if that, or if you're sort of restricting your scope to Brazil, or if that angle is something that that you might also consider. And it just came to mind because Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie said that, this Nollywood is like the perfect example of Africans creating or consuming what they create. And I was just curious if any of your work included sort of exploring the consumption in the US context, since there is such a huge Nigerian population here in the US. Mm-hmm. I guess I'll stop there before I ask the second part.
Oh, okay. Definitely. Actually, one of my papers that I'm also writing is on Nollywood in Jamaica. So, and just seeing how like literally it's probably more like Guyana and also probably like Barbados, and that, you know, they don't